Hello, my name is Alex DeLucia. I am your host for Brookfield Today and Beyond. Brookfield Today and Beyond is a show brought to you by the Brookfield Republican Town Committee. We encourage you to submit questions. You can submit questions to www.brookfieldgop.com. Today I have with me Dr. Robin Appleby and Phil Kurtz, candidates for the Board of Finance in Brookfield. Thank you for joining me, gentlemen.
A pleasure.
Why don't we start? This is the first time you have both been before this forum. Why don't we start with telling the voters a little about who you are? Phil, why don't you start us off?
Well, Phil Kurtz. Pleasure to be here today. Well, let's see. We live over in Candlewood Shores. I've been there for about 8 years in the town of Brookfield. I'm age 59. I'm a graduate of Syracuse University. I had a degree in construction management, which is a combination of civil engineering and accounting. And for probably about 20 years, worked in heavy construction over in New York, both estimating, managing multi-million-dollar projects over there, and then decided to go into my own business. In fact, my wife about a year later did the same, and started my own construction company and developed, built homes, developing over in Westchester, did a lot of work over in Connecticut as well. We crossed the border quite a bit, and did that for about the last 30 years or so. And currently we own and operate and manage some multifamily apartment buildings over in Woodbury, and that's kind of where I'm at right at the moment.
Okay, and Dr. Appleby?
I grew up in Norwalk. I've been in Brookfield since 1983 when I finished my internship and residency in obstetrics and gynecology. I raised 3 children and 3 stepchildren. All of them went to Brookfield schools. I absolutely love the Brookfield schools. My kids have had such great, just excellent teachers. And several of the kids said the absolute best teacher they had was Doc Wolkind, who you've probably heard about. I'd like to also mention Beth Delaney, the science teacher. She ought to be teacher of the year every year. She's just so fabulous. My son did 4 years of track, and I just want to mention that Coach Butt, Coach Courtney, and Coach Cook are just the most phenomenal guys there. I trained 14 years after high school to be a physician. I was blessed to have the most wonderful job and the most fulfilling job in the world. I delivered babies for 26 years altogether. I think the most wonderful thing is after you deliver the child, to then put it in the mother's arms. And I would tell her, when you're old like me, you'll forget whole years of your life. But I said, you will remember today till the day you die, that this is the most important day of your life. And I would thank them for letting me share the most wonderful day in their whole life. Sometimes the husbands would say, oh no, the day she married me, that was her best day. And I would say, buddy, you're not even in the ballpark. And the women would always laugh. But thank you for having us. I've known Alex, of course, about 25 years.
Yeah,
we were even at Georgetown together.
Yep. Well, why don't we start with you, Robin?
Okay.
Why don't you tell people why you're running for the Board of Finance at this time?
I feel that the middle class in this country is just being crushed. If a country's going to have a strong, vibrant democracy, it has to have a very strong, secure middle class. With the amount of job losses, we've lost about 11 million jobs in the last 11 years. With just the difficulties, if people our age, men and women, if they lose their job, they will probably never get another paying job again. Maybe a Walmart job if they're lucky. Sometimes our skills have gotten a little out of date, that's true, but it's just so difficult. So many people are just hanging on by their fingernails. I mean, the average American's making about $505 a week or $25,000 a year. That's national, not just Brookfield, it's a little higher. But I just feel like the families are being so hurt by the rising taxes. A week ago, President Obama said he wanted to raise taxes $1.5 trillion. Governor Malloy just raised 50 taxes by another $1.5 billion. And then every year in Brookfield, it's raising taxes, raising taxes, raising taxes. And what the people are saying to us, we had to go out and we got 212 signatures to qualify for the primary. They're saying to us, please, give us a break on the taxes. And I feel like the politicians aren't listening at both parties and at all levels. So hopefully now we're getting a team that will listen to that. Please, we're not trying to cut anything. We call it the no tax increase budget. We would like to make it a little more efficient. We're both from the private sector. We've been in the private sector all our lives. We feel there are any big bureaucracy, there's a lot of efficiencies. We don't want to lay off people. We don't want to cut salaries or anything. We're not using the cut word. We would just like to kind of hold the line on spending and hold the line on taxes.
Absolutely correct.
Would you like to add your own impression as to how we should do that?
Well, have the average taxpayer in Brookfield, has your income gone up 30, 40%, let's say, in the last 8 to 10 years? I kind of doubt it. If you have, I'd like to get that job. But taxes have gone up 30 to 40% in the last 8 to 10 years. And to be honest with you, I've had enough of that as well. I think the people, the average citizen of Brookfield has not really gotten a fair representation on that. And I think it's time that, folks like Robin and I get in, be able to work with everybody, and be able to, go in and do what we do in private business and in our private lives every single day. We know how to work with budgets. We do it all the time, and I think we can, bring that to the public sector, which I think, might need a little help right now.
Well,
and hold these taxes.
It would be fair to say part of what brought you to Brookfield 8 years ago was the tax efficiency we had.
Yes,
I mean, in essence, you came to enjoy the quality of life we delivered at a lower tax rate than you were experiencing in Westchester County. Isn't that a fair
Absolutely
summation?
correct. Absolutely correct. And here I am 8 to 10 years later, finding myself almost in the same position I just left over in Westchester, which I know is higher, but again, that doesn't, that's not an excuse. In fact, the fact that our town might have respectively lower tax rates than some of the adjoining towns doesn't make it right. Everybody in this state is hurting, not just our town. So, to say that we have low taxes, as Davidson had said in one of his little flyers, low compared to what? And does that make it right? Absolutely not. So we're going to try to help with that.
Yeah, I think this use of relative, well, could be worse, doesn't, only goes so far. I know there's a degree to which you feel very strongly that you are representing the average person in Brookfield, and I know you've solicited some email feedback. Why don't you share some of the things you've got?
After the Republican primary, Phil, with me helping a little bit, actually wrote a hand-addressed note to the about 150 people in District 1 and about 150 people in District 2 till our wives cut us off from stamps.
I see.
And we just thanked them. They may have not voted for us, but we said, thank you for taking the time to go vote in the Republican primary. And we said, we'd really like to know what's on your mind. And we got a lot of response, and it was actually all the same thing. I, of course, won't say people's names, but this one says, of course it's taxes. Seniors want to stay in town. This person says, we are drowning in federal and state taxes. Of course, then, they buy food, get dental care, get medical care, go to the gas station, get heating oil, they're getting killed. This person says, the first issue is taxes. This one says, I feel first and foremost spending must be reined in. This person says, please lower our property taxes. This person says, keeping taxes down so we longtime residents can afford to stay here. And we'd like to say that we want to honor them, and we'll do that by helping them to stay in Brookfield. And we think that if we can keep the taxes down, we don't want them driven out. I was on Board of Assessment Appeals for 6 years, and that was back late 90s and early, up till 2004 roughly. And the elderly would be in crying. Now, they had worked all their lives. They had played by the rules, good parents, honest people. And they had their dream home, and often the kids and grandkids lived next door around the corner in Brookfield. And they're being forced out of town and forced away from their families, and they'd come in and cry to Board of Assessment Appeals. Please, keep the taxes down. You're forcing us out of town. And that's probably the biggest impetus that Phil and we see ourselves as sort of activists for the average person, activists for the middle class.
Would you like to add to that, my friend?
I would, just a little. When you think of a town budget, which obviously will be a major concern to us, there's two sides to the budget. There's the town income side, which would be the voters, or the grand list, as they're often referred to. Kind of dehumanizes it a little bit, but it's the voters, okay? It's their tax money. And then there's the town side, which would have, of course, the town services, school budget, and any of the other, areas that the townspeople would benefit, via the town. And the income, the people side of that equation has really been not the focus over the last, X number of years. It's always been what I kind of call the takers. There's the makers and the takers. And right now, I think that the makers are having a really difficult time. It's going to be up to them to decide what services they want the town to provide. And we're going to be that intermediary, which the Board of Finance is, to help make those decisions and be the go-between. But they need fair representation. That's what we're here to do.
I know you both have ideas as to what the voters can do about their high taxes. Why don't you talk a little bit about what you envision the voters doing to get control of the situation?
Well, let's see. Number one, they could keep paying the high taxes year after year, but I don't think that's working. That's not the message we are getting. Number two, they could leave town, as some people have referenced. But that's only if they could sell their home, and I don't think they can honestly sell their home these days. I think what's happening is they're feeling very trapped. And what happens, you can't trap people like this, because one, underneath is an underlying fear that they may actually lose their home, all right? And there's some of that already going on. So I think they're feeling very distraught, unrepresented, and what can we do about that? And obviously taxes has been, one of the burdens. Obviously there's been increased fuel costs and food and everything else, but I think that's something that's, obviously on our, for Robin and I, as far as concerns go. Or the third thing that they could do is to elect folks like Robin and I to represent them, and the town as well, but to do it fairly, so that we will match up the economic times of what people are going through with what services that they really would like to have, and not the other way around. I'm the town, and how are you going to support us? It's really, townspeople came first, town government came second.
Could I just touch on that a little bit?
Yeah,
too?
please.
Actually, during the last budget process, I kept hearing people on Board of Ed and Board of Finance, they kept saying, well, what's good for the town? What's good for the town? And I never heard them saying what's good for the average taxpayer. There's an old kind of joke that there's two professions that know everything that goes on in town: hairdressers and gynecologists. And I have patients all over Fairfield County, and of course Litchfield County also, but it's such a close relationship if you've been there all night or delivered their children, or et cetera, save their lives, whatever. And, I'll sit in Brookfield, I have probably about 60 families that are patients, and I'll sit with them. And the husband maybe had just got laid off in last November, and now the wife had worked 31 years and just got laid off from her job. They don't know how they're going to get food on the table. They don't know how they're going to pay the mortgage. About 60% of Americans are having trouble sleeping nights because of financial worries. I mean, it's so stressful on families. Around April, it was in the newspaper that there was 53 homes for sale in Brookfield. Not counting short sales, 60 of them were foreclosures. And they had done a study in Florida about the tremendous amount of stress of foreclosure costs. The kids have to leave their neighborhoods and their friends. They got to leave most of their toys behind. Oftentimes they have to leave their pets because the rentals won't take pets. They have to leave their schools. It's so stressful that so often the marriage will even break up right when they need to stay together and work together. These hard times are just stressing out the families so badly. And what Phil and I would like to do, as much as in our power, is to try to help the families, because I think both of us, that there's very hard times coming. The people of Brookfield all need to, kind of pull together and work together, and that's what we're hoping to bring to that.
How do you envision making a difference?
Well, different ways. I run a small farm, and we are constantly expanding the farm. We have many people that come over, many times even twice a week, and we'll just get bushel baskets of food, of sweet corn, of tomatoes, of eggplants, whatever we're growing. And they'll often help us out and work there, but they just say that's such a lifesaver to come there. I wasn't really going to get into this part, but one thing is there is a food bank in town, and if you have extra tomatoes and corn and things, I really encourage people to come down to the food bank and support it. They can support it financially, and they can support it by bringing their food. But I think there's just so many ways in town. There's a lot of charities like Pete Brady, the handy dandy man, is just a saint and just does so much. He constantly has things going on. I think next week it's at the Danbury Library where we're moving all the books for the book sale. There's just so much going on in Brookfield that people can get involved with it to help their neighbors, because I think it's what we need. It's really hard times coming. We need to all pull together.
You have some additional thoughts on that?
I'd just like to add to that. First of all, two people in and of ourselves are not going to make a difference. This has to be a team effort. And when I say a team, this team has to be everybody, from the voters who we said we're representing, to the townspeople, town employees, schools, teachers, unions. Everybody has to contribute to this, and we intend to work with everybody. We're not going in and saying you out, you in, this, that. That's not our goal. First of all, we don't set policy. We have a budget. We give, people will come to us with their budgets, what they feel they should be getting. The budgets will be looked at, analyzed, and then given back. Then they have to work within those budgets just like we would at home or anywhere else. So that being said, I don't want the people who are worried about Robin and I getting on this board as being some cut and slash, kind of people. We're very intelligent. We have run big budgets in our lives before. We intend to do that now, but our real intention is to work with people, all right? Not come in as the scary people, but to come in and knowingly work with these people. I want them, we're going to be friendly. I'm coming in friendly, and I'm going to leave friendly. And I want them to know this, that we're here to work with them.
I'm glad you raised that issue, because I think there's a whole degree to which when somebody says they're going to be fiscally responsible or they're looking to hold the line, there's a degree to which people are worried about cut and slash, and I think there's a degree to which the candidates running against you have sort of played on that fear. And in particular, I think there's a fear that you're opposed to education, you're anti-intellectual. Dr. Appleby, I'm going to let you, from Georgetown and Syracuse, except for basketball season, there should be no problem here. Why don't we address this a little bit?
Thank you. I think in terms of education, the proof that something's valuable to you is you spend many, many years doing it, you put a lot of effort in it, you put a lot of money in it, and I'll say that about education. I went to school 14 years. Was a tremendous amount of work, and again, very good thing. So I think no one values education as much as I do. I know there's rumors out there that we want to kill all the teachers and burn the schools to the ground, and I hope people would stop doing that. We would like you to debate the issues with us. Call us, email us, we'll meet you for coffee at Panera Bread or wherever people want to. And we've never said the word cut, and we're not saying the word layoffs. We'd kind of like to hold the line on spending to help families that are just really struggling in our town.
We know there's areas within every sector that can be improved. I'm sure there's waste in there that we can all find that it's kind of unaccountable for right now, or people, in their departments. I know that there are little profit centers that can probably be created that the town has ability to do, but nobody's doing it because nobody cares. It could be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 here and there, and then a $50+ million budget. What's that? But all these things add up. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a substantial amount of money that, with cooperation and effort from everyone, we can find so that in fact we don't have to raise taxes, people don't have to lose their jobs, and we can go forward with a much more, not private version of the public government, because I'm not sure that could ever happen, but we could certainly get better systems put together so that people can be accountable and work for the same thing, get them on board. I know it can be done.
Could I just touch on that a second?
Please.
Some of our ideas 2 years ago was a simple idea to get an ATM machine down at Town Hall, which they've done, which is great. It makes a few dollars for the government. Another idea, they were leasing an excavator at, let's say, $50,000 a year. Well, you could buy it for $100,000, and now they have, which I think is great. We think we want to protect, it's always the lowest paid employees are the ones that are laid off. We want to protect their jobs and hopefully protect their increases in wages. One way we want to do that is to get ideas from the employees, to give them a 5 or 10% one-time thing for their idea, and then
incentives.
Incentives. For example, there's buildings where they leave in the town government where they leave the heat on at 73 all winter, even at nighttime, even on weekends. We'd like to give the employees, use that as a baseline and refund some to the employees for their ideas of how to do it. Maybe we need zones, maybe we just need to turn some parts off. But these are ways that we could just become more efficient. Taking what we know from the private sector, I built 12 homes in Brookfield. I've done 3 subdivisions. I run a farm. Phil's built many, many more homes than I ever have. But we want to take some of the ways we run a private business and apply it. Right now, there's not a lot of incentive for the employees, like to turn the heat down, let's say. And we think that we can take those savings and then keep the jobs. That's our hope.
Things will all add up. All add up.
Now, and just to address that, I know part of our goal ultimately is to see the grand list grow. and just so that anybody gets any idea here, you're not planning to build any high rises as part of that grandless growth. Okay, just figured I'll address that before somebody
Alex,
else.
could I touch on that? I was driving down Route 25 in Monroe the other day, and I hadn't been there in 6 months, and I could not believe the empty storefronts, and either for sale or lease, just everywhere. I just like, wow, in 6 months. I think that the taxes, I mean, I've had small business, I'm a small business person, Phil has, we know what it's like, and I'll be honest, in the past, Brookfield was a horrible, horrible business climate to work. I mean, it was like they would take pleasure in torturing you. My wife is a very moderate person. We'd do these subdivisions or build houses, we'd come back from planning, zoning, whatever. My wife would say, government never helps you. Government only hurts you. And that's one thing we're really trying to change. And I think they really have made an effort to try to make it a much more business-friendly town. But for the poor small business owner, with the taxes and the red tape and the regulations, they're making it tough. They need to be going the other way and really making it business-friendly. And that's one thing we would really like to do in Brookfield to help that.
There have been changes
that
have already,
some good changes already
going in this direction.
Yep.
I think some of the different boards have made effort to do that, and I applaud them for that, because as a developer and like Robin, I've been up against a lot of boards in a lot of other towns, and I have to tell you, some of them, it's just a nightmare. You just see them spending your money like left and right, and here you are trying to provide a service, homes, whatever the development that you're trying to do, and you need not to act like you're there as a police enforcer to your town zoning or laws. You need to be there to try to help people, help the businesses, help the people who are willing to take money out of their pockets and develop in your town. Absolutely, you need that. That is critical for this town to grow and to help grow the Grand List, which I believe in. And I think we can, I think we will. I think it's a really tough climate to do it in, but at least if you open the door and say, hey, Brookfield, open for business, please come our way, it'll go a long ways. I really do.
Now, as a Board of Finance people, many people don't realize the limited degree to which you oversee the Board of Ed budget. And so one of the issues that ultimately comes before you is the idea of whether or not the town should split the vote on both budgets. Any thoughts on that subject? Do you have that's come up because it's a charter revision question.
I think it's a good idea because I think it's giving you more feedback. I think there's a lot of things where actually the town part is just being starved. 10 years ago, we had 16 guys on the crew, the town crew. Now we have 10 plus a mechanic, and yet we have more roads. And the plowing could just be this last winter was just a nightmare for them. I think the police chief is way underpaid compared to, say, some of the assistant principals. I would make the first selectman, I don't do this self-servingly because I don't think I'd be a good first selectman, but the first selectman is the president, the CEO of your company, which is your town. I think he should be the highest paid in the town. Now, Governor Cuomo just did that. He gets in New York, he gets $175,000. He said the governor's going to be the highest paid. So there's a lot of school superintendents who are making like $230,000, $240,000 on Long Island who are whining. I just think that the problem too, we only can get retired people or old guys like ourselves. And if you think back on, because at the present pay for the first selectman, a person with a family really can't do it. And so I'd like to see that a lot of things actually raised. I think we need more police in the town, and we have different ideas of how to get to that point, which we won't go into today. But
well, you should. We got to. Well, why don't you give some thoughts?
Well, one thing is making it more efficient and trying to, look at, like I say, maybe you could do a zoning in some of the buildings so that you could turn 2 of the zones off at nighttime and weekends and not be heating it so hot. I mean, a good example, we have roughly 100 vehicles in our fleet. Another town comes over and gets our waste oil and uses it to heat their building. I would like to use it to heat our building. We have hundreds and hundreds of these kind of ideas, which I don't want to get into now, because also I'd like the employees to give it and get credit for the ideas, because I think that we'd get them all on board.
Very good. Many people have been critical about the fact that we funded the road paving project that's been going on in Brookfield as opposed to putting it into the budget, which might have enabled you to hire more people and have a permanent addition to the road crew. Any thoughts on that subject?
Well, from not knowing the complete history of all that, I think it had obviously gotten deferred and deferred and deferred, and it got to a point where it was so bad, it had to be done, and then we had to go out and borrow money to do it. Had there been proper planning earlier on and budgeting for roads, look, we're going to have to make repairs and do things. I mean, that's just kind of a given. But if you keep pushing it off, it's going to end up falling on somebody's shoulders later down the road, which happened to be around now. So proper planning, knowing where you're going, things that are going to be coming up, so that they don't have to necessarily be borrowed for. Because right now, borrowing, which has been, tax and spend and borrow, and bonding, which is borrowing, has become a real, problem and burdening. And that's a long-lived burden. That isn't something, these roads would be great, but for how long? And then we'll still be paying for that even after they deteriorate. So if it can be, worked into a budget a little more carefully, it won't become as big a burden as it has become now, with going out to borrow.
Exactly. It's sad that we have to say borrow for 20 years for roads, because our grandchildren will be paying for the roads, and yet they'll need the roads done by that time. So I wish there was a way that we could not have to borrow for so many things.
We have to prioritize.
Yes.
This is all about priorities.
Yeah.
And you would say that there's been a lack of that, perhaps?
Yes. I know I've listened to Steve and George talking a little bit about some of the priorities that have not been priorities. We've got some communities in this town right now with bad water, some with too much water, that have been, basically not ignored, but haven't been, there has been no resolution in these communities, or neighborhoods, I should really say, for 10 years. And it's like, you know what? That's pathetic. That's a priority, okay? Bike paths and other niceties, when the economy is good and everybody has extra money flowing, terrific, we'll do it. Right now, you've got to pick and choose, and you have to pick what's beneficial to your community, your neighborhoods, and everybody who's supporting, the town's efforts, and vice versa. Town has to support the people.
So getting to what you said earlier, if you had Steve and George as your first selectman and selectmen, you would think you would have a team in place.
Yes.
That would enable the town
Absolutely.
to become more efficient and better planned
Exactly.
going forward.
And you need a team. It goes back to what I said.
Right.
Two of us are not going to make a difference. We're going
Right.
to need everybody, and especially, in the on the boards.
And that's a good point too, because they're from the private sector. We're running against some people that have been, in government their whole lives. I think we really need to get the private sector to try to make things a little more efficient and try to save the people's jobs, and also hopefully we can get them raises.
Well, gentlemen, I think this has been an outstanding dialogue. I want to thank you,
Thank you,
Dr.
Alex.
Appleby. I want to thank you, Phil, for
Thank
joining me this afternoon. I'd like to thank our audience. Again, this is Brookfield Today and Beyond, brought to you by the Brookfield Republican Town Committee. I'm Alex DeLucia, and if you have additional questions, I would encourage you to submit them to www.brookfieldgop.com. Thank you for joining us.
Alex, thank you so much.
There you go.
It was such a pleasure.